I'll go with that one.
I think it's gone half an hour.
Welcome everybody, press and public gallery alike. I think it's just about 9:30. I'd first like to preface the meeting with passing on our congratulations to Marion and Tony for their wedding. I understand it was stressful getting there, but it worked out all in the end. Indeed. Back to the agenda. Are there any declarations of interest? Councillor Mumford?
A small pecuniary interest in the steamship company.
Yeah, I'm similar for me.
Is it Councillor Bennett or Councillor Barclay now?
Barclay.
Councillor Barclay.
Cusey.
It begins with a B, I'll
Does,
remember.
yeah. Thank you. I'm declaring interest in being a coordinator of FRIST, Friends of Arthur Transport, and a director of the CIC for Arthur Transport Development and Improvement. Thank you.
And I'm obviously have a small interest in the as a shareholder of the steamship company.
Right, and I am also a director of the CIC Transport Development Company. All right, you've had the minutes of the previous meeting. Are there any items that are inaccuracy? If not,
I propose to accept them as a true record, Chairman.
thank you. We've got a proposer and a seconder. All those in favour? It's unanimous, thank you very much. And then we come on to item 4, airport fees and charges. You should have in front of you a A3 spreadsheet, which is actually the back end of it, of the spreadsheets that were distributed. Apparently there was an error with Excel, but the large version, the white copy, is now accurate. The error was on the last 3 columns, Greg?
Yeah, yes, Chairman, for some reason, when it printed, it was corrupted towards the last couple of years, particularly the year 20, but also for some reason as well, rather than just having the box at the end of the spreadsheet, there were actually 2 boxes. The bottom one actually was correct, notwithstanding the fact at year end there was a corruption with some of the figures. So that the spreadsheet you have in front of you is actually the correct spreadsheet, and that actually is the basis of the report. So it doesn't make any difference to the recommendations or indeed how the fees and charges have been set. What I would say about the fees and charges is that it is based on the current financial situation of the airport, and also the funding requirements, which is actually set out in the investment and replacement plan. And I think just to pick out 1 or 2 issues really in the report, I think the first thing to say is that we have reviewed the investment in asset replacement plan, which of course was approved by members last year. And that is, and there are 2 really main factors to take into account in reviewing the replacement plan. And that is the current deficit of the airport, which is just over £715,000. Now that's largely due to the additional costs over and above the grants that we received for the improvement project. And also, secondly, we've updated some of the costs and also revised in terms of where they are within year, because there's a pressing requirement to particularly replace one of the fire appliances, which, as members will appreciate, is a fairly expensive vehicle, made more so because of some of the nuances at St Mary's Airport. It's very difficult sometimes to get off-the-shelf vehicles because of some of the requirements of the Civil Aviation Authority for a Category 3 airport, but also because of our some of our difficulties, particularly in terms of access around the perimeter of the aerodrome, which means that we do have to get a vehicle which is slightly smaller than your standard Category 3 fire appliance. You'll see that in the report I've set out various scenarios and various options in terms of what I consider to be the most preferred option, which is obviously option 4, which is a 6% rise in fees and charges, particularly as they relate to commercial flights and passengers, because most of our income, as you'll see from the report, is on the basis of passengers. In terms of doing those scenarios, I have actually trended that we do anticipate more passengers next year. So for the first time, actually getting over 100,000 passengers for a number of years. And that was based really on current trends, as well as the implementation of EGNOS, which might make a difference in terms of flight reliability. Chairman, I've got nothing more to add, but obviously I will take any questions that members have.
Members' questions, please. Councillor Billsborough.
Yes, Chairman, I read the report. What worries me, if you go to the bottom of page 3, paragraph 1.13, it talks about the reserves are in deficit by £715,000 and the balance will remain in deficit at £451,000. If you go over to page 5 at the bottom paragraph, legal, it says a failure to generate sufficient reserves could result in the airport failing to deliver on its requirement. What worries me really is, supposing in the coming year, a year or two to come, we had a big bill which demanded that we had to actually spend reserves on doing it. Now, if the reserves are in deficit, we can hardly spend a deficit, can we?
Chairman, the whole point actually of having the asset register and having this kind of reinvestment plan is that we can actually plan ahead. And so we do have a much greater understanding in terms of the things that might go wrong and the things that might need to be replaced. Now, clearly, if we do need to change in any given year to buy something, then obviously we can always borrow. But the important thing is to look at a 20-year horizon to make sure that you are actually investing year on year. So by the time you get to year 20, you have actually accumulated sufficient funds to actually reinvest and also replace all of those key assets.
Okay, I understand that, Chairman, but finally, I always understood that we were not allowed to make a loss on the airfield. Is that correct?
Chairman, that's not strictly true, but what we do need to do is make sure that the airport going forward is actually financially viable. So it's really important not just to cover the kind of annual day-to-day running costs, but also to start setting aside funding to actually pay for the replacement of kit and equipment. And the real expense, of course, is the replacement of the runways. Now, previously, we've been very fortunate in that we did receive significant grant funding towards actually replacing those assets. But the point is, we can't keep relying on government grants or European grants going forward. So, which is why, again, it's really important to have a strategy moving forward to ensure that we are actually year on year making the right investments, but also ensuring that we're actually making sufficient income to be able to make those investments.
Okay, thank you, Chairman.
I think it was Councillor Coombs next.
Thank you. Small beer really, because the majority of the income comes from the commercial operation, but page 13 we've got the fees and charges for light aircraft. Previous meetings, when you put a blanket percentage increase, you end up with some slightly daft figures. We get private pilots up at the tower saying how remarkably cheap it is to fly in here. I don't know whether the current costs even cover the cost of administration. I would suggest we do need to look at some of these areas, such as the private aircraft. Look at what we're charging. Does that even cover our cost of administration? Could we charge more? I'm aware we put the prices down for light aircraft landing a couple of years ago. I don't think the prices, even if we doubled the prices, I don't think they would be a deterrent to people flying down here. The main issue about private pilots getting down here is the weather. So I would like that we can actually start looking at some of these figures, make sure at least they wash their face.
Yeah, can I just ask Councillor Francis, as a private pilot, are these figures out of step with everybody else or not?
Obviously, I've probably got to be careful on the declarations of interest on that.
I'm
but
not asking for this end.
But it doesn't worry me that the fees, and obviously for local pilots, there are an annual fee and so on. That's a different matter to visiting pilot. I think you're just dealing with a simple equation that is much the same as the equation on the fees and charges for the airfare, for the visitors coming via Skybus or the new helicopter. It's about attracting more people in. And one of the troubles with the private pilot side is that we don't do anywhere near as much. You're saying there's a few come in. There are a few. But my God, there could be an awful lot more. And it's something we've never marketed well.
Can I draw you back to the question that I actually asked? Yeah. Is, are we out of step with aerodromes on the mainland?
It depends greatly on what type of facility you're talking about. Actually, GA airfields are generally pretty cheap. £10 a landing fee, £15 a landing fee is quite commonplace for half-decent private airfields like Dunk as well, Leon Solent, Popham, quite cheap and quite cheap overnight fees. But if you start trying to access Newquay or Bristol or Exeter, more commercial sites, it does go up quite a lot. And I'm not sure what Bristol is now, but it's probably £50. So it's quite a bit more than the GA. It depends on really the size and the facilities and the
Right, thank you.
Simple as that.
Okay, does that help a little?
Well, if we're talking £10 and £15, we're looking at, in terms of the light aircraft, sort of £6.22 we're charging for our lowest category of light aircraft, and I'm sure it costs more than £6. Right. So I think my question is that are we covering, at least we must cover our costs at least, and I think in terms of encouraging people down here, price sensitivity or landing charges is not the main issue.
Can I just pass on to Craig?
Chairman, yeah, can I just say we did make a very conscious decision 2 years ago to actually encourage more general aviation to the airfield, and bearing in mind it is a public licensed aerodrome, so that makes it slightly different to some of the other bigger commercial aerodromes, so we actively try to encourage general aviation. We make about £12,000 per annum actually from general aviation, and that figure actually I think is, whilst not significant, it's not insignificant. So the difficulty for us is that to encourage more general aviation, we have kept our fees and charges down. Now, there are other issues, there are other things that we can do to encourage more general aviation, and what we're looking at actually is potentially the options for things like refuelling, because that's a big deterrent. The fact is that general aviation planes can't refuel over here, and that might be something that we can look into in the future. My view on this, and having spoken to the airport manager, is that we keep fees and charges as proposed actually within the document before you, just to try to encourage more general aviation. But there are other things that we can actually do as well.
Okay.
But it certainly covers its costs.
Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you. Just a couple of points, Chairman. Firstly, just to go back to Councillor Billsborough's comments. Sorry, but am I right in just thinking, my understanding is that what we're proposing is to gradually replace the reserves so that we end up in a better position than we are now. We don't have any money, as far as I'm aware, unless something's changed overnight. This authority doesn't have any money. So it would be illogical, in my opinion, to start borrowing more money to put into reserves for something that might happen in the future. So with respect to, what happens in the future, let's worry about that if and when it happens. But systematically replace the reserves in a logical fashion. Is that right?
That's my understanding entirely.
Okay, right. Now, going back to fees and charges then for small aircraft, as long as it covers its cost, I don't have a huge problem with it, and I would follow the recommendation of the airport staff, etc. But I would also say on that subject that with regards to encouraging more light aircraft into the airfield, I would be amazed if £3 was going to put somebody off who owns or has access to a private plane. So in response to Councillor Coombs' comments and listening to what Councillor Francis has said, I personally wouldn't have a problem if we just said call it a tenner.
Yeah.
But and to be brutally honest, if somebody turned around to me and wrote a letter of objection, I'd say, well...
Is that some sort of is that a proposition?
So I will propose £10 on that one.
I would
second that, or whatever covers the cost, because I agree entirely with Councillor Coombs.
Can I just say, Chairman,
can I just
propose to cover the cost, but Mr. Dryden has already said that the proposed figure of £6.
Can I, from the chair, can I make a suggestion? Because that proposal of a tenner would be extremely complicated as it stands because of the other fees that are knock on from it. Can I ask you to consider that you take that baseline as a tenner and increase all the small private landing fees at the same percentage thereof?
Yeah.
Would you be happy with that?
And Chairman, that would be a very sensible approach.
I'm afraid for the purpose of the recording, my light's flashing green, so, but I am agreeing to that.
Right. You agree with that? That we take the baseline as the smallest landing fee as £10 and increase the private landing charges on a percentage, on an appropriate percentage
absolutely.
Based upon that £10 fee?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
You're happy with that?
Yep.
Is that seconded, Councillor Martin? Yeah. Okay. You wanted to talk about this or?
Well, I was going to make a further comment, but if you want to put that to the vote and see if members agree.
I'd like to take that first, if that's okay by you. Right, we have a proposition proposed by Councillor O'Neill and seconded by Councillor Martin that we take the baseline as £10 increase the private landing fees in the same percentage thereafter. Is there any more discussion on that?
One small point, Chairman. A light aircraft landing doesn't wear out the runway much, and you've got the air traffic controllers there. I think we're actually nitpicking to try and raise that fee. I shall vote against it.
Right. Any more on the proposition? Are you on the proposition, Councillor?
No, I'm not.
Barclay. Okay. Any more on the proposition? Right. All those in favour? All those against? Motion carried. Right. We'll carry on the next one, which was Councillor Martin.
Yeah, no, I wanted to make the point that apart from the fact that I do agree with Councillor Coombs and I disagree with what the senior officer said about the cost, I do think we need to be extremely consistent. We have rigorously tried across the board to up the fees and charges for all the reasons that we know of, increasing our reserves incrementally, etc., as Councillor O'Neill's already alluded to, so I don't need to repeat that. So I do not see why this would be any different. There is absolutely no reason, for example, to raise boatmen's costs but not touch the airport. So for reasons of consistency, I think we really do need to be careful. And given that we're not completely out of money, but we are in a bad way, so therefore it is up to us to work on it.
Right, Councillor Barclay.
Oh, thank you.
That's you.
Thank you. I'll try and get this. Just general points. I'm glad to hear that we're looking at going up to 100,000 passengers, because it's only through the passenger numbers that the airport will survive and thrive. And I think it's noteworthy that, in fact, the proposed number is still, it's almost just over half what it once was. 100,000 against nearly 93,000. You know, and we're sitting here talking about 10 quid here and 10 quid there. It's just untenable. I don't actually have great confidence in some of the figures when, for example, the generator shed, 50,000. How big is the generator, for goodness sake? The passenger terminal, I'm glad to see it's come down to 1,300,000, because in the figures I was reading yesterday, it was 2 million. Oh, it's only 700,000. I feel deeply concerned, and I would like to say that I don't think that the aim of this, the transport part of the Teddy Committee, should be overly concerned with some of these small issues. We should be concerned with increasing the income of the airport. And the airport per se is not important. It's the service it provides and the services it provides. And we seem to get our priorities wrong sometimes. That's all I'd like to say.
Councillor Martin.
Yeah, thank you. I absolutely agree with the comments made by Councillor Barclay. Unfortunately, we had an issue that was brought to the table, so we had to deal with it, small or not. But in a general scheme, we need to look at the big picture and the big issues. We had an unfortunate thing this time last year, and I think we need to create an income and make that airport sustainable. It truly is a lifeline. That's a phrase which is used often too much in public speak, but in our case it really does mean it, so members need to focus on that.
Are you wanting to speak again, Councillor Barclay, or not?
No.
Right. Councillor Coombs next.
Probably won't be as popular as the light aircraft charges. Car parking, again, page 14, we've got a line in here. Very generous we are with car parking. Most local authorities generate a lot of revenue out of car parking. I don't think we generate anything from private car parking. I agree with Councillor Barclay. It's going to take me a while to get used to that. We are fiddling around the edges, but we are showing a daily car parking charge up at the airport. We don't charge, we don't enforce, hence the airport does tend to look a bit like a scrapyard this time of year with cars strewn all over the place. I realise that if we do actually start charging what we're showing here, we'll probably just displace a lot of the cars. Certainly would support the local taxi industry in terms of people just getting a taxi up to the airport instead. But I'm not sure I know what the answer is there, but if we are going to show on spreadsheets that we have got charges, we either have it on the spreadsheet and charge it, or we just say, well, no, parking up there's a free.
If you have a look at the spreadsheet, it explains that. It's the first 5 days are free.
Which seems ridiculously generous. And there's vehicles up there much longer than 5 days. I have checked with Craig, and there is no enforcement of parking up there at all. So we don't, even if a car is up there the whole winter, we do not charge for it.
Just to clarify on that point, so currently we're not actually charging for car parking, but it is actually within the schedule of fees and charges, and it is something that members can clearly consider at this meeting, whether or not we do actually start implementing fees and charges for parking of private vehicles, and whether or not the first 5 days free is actually, well, firstly enforceable and secondly reasonable.
Councillor Daly.
Thank you. Two things. First of all, do we charge anything for the catering concession at the airport?
Chairman, yes we do.
Thank you. I didn't find it in the spreadsheets anywhere, but presumably that's a reasonable fee. And I see we're being asked to approve 6%. Normally in the past we've been given a range of things that we can choose from.
Can we just, before we carry on, I think somebody's...
Something with this one here.
What do you think is yours?
Crackling away.
It's crackling.
Can you turn that off and share one with...
And do you want to pass them one down?
I think it's Colin's actually. Isn't it?
Shall I come back?
I'm just bothered about Councillor Daly. If we proceed without microphones, has it settled down a moment?
Well, yeah, because it's the earphones.
It's your technology, Carl. That's good.
I've taken it out, but it's...
That's better. Can you hear us, Colin?
Yes, I can.
Is there anybody else?
I can certainly hear my own voice.
Right. Sorry. Had you finished what you were?
No, I hadn't.
Right, can you carry on then?
We were given this figure of 6% to approve or disapprove. Can I understand that the steamship group have agreed to this? Have we had consultations with them? Is it a fee that they're happy with?
Great.
Right. Firstly, the members will actually see that there are actually a range of options. So everything from 0% all the way through to 10% with the various scenarios in terms of what that means in terms of income generation and what that means in terms of contribution to reserves. The paper is very clear, though, because based on the investment and replacement strategy, the recommendation is that we should be putting a minimum of £300,000 back into reserves in order to actually meet the kind of 20-year requirements for that reinvestment. So on the basis of predicting 100,000 passengers next year, and it has to be based on a prediction and on an estimate, because obviously we won't know until we actually get to that year end, it's my recommendation that a 6% increase based on 100,000 passengers will actually hit that magic number of £300,000 to put back into reserves. So I'm being very specific because the investment and replacement strategy is very specific, but I have also given members various options as well in terms of what those scenarios will be. In terms of engagement with the steamship group, what we have done, although formally this year we have not engaged formally with the steamship group, what we have done is taken on board some of the assumptions based on some of the discussions last year, and that includes the income generated per passenger based on things like landing fees, which we've actually increased, so that's more equitable in terms of the load factor, and also looking at forecasting moving forward as well. So it does take on board some of those assumptions, but the real issue for us is that if you look at the deficit at the moment in the airport and then moving forward over that 20-year period, then we do actually need to increase fees and charges. And my recommendation is that it should be 6%.
Can I just, from the chair, my understanding after last year's discussions, which were long and protracted and damaging to both the council and to the steamship group, that we were supposed to be engaging with the steamship group before this recommendation came to Teddy. Is there any particular reason why we haven't this year?
No, Chairman. The difficulty, I think, always for us is that, moving forward, we need to think about the kind of, the long-term future viability of the airport. What I've been very explicit in terms of the report is based on some of the assumptions and some of the discussions we had last year. And the real issue kind of moving forward is absolutely making sure that, obviously the airport moving forward is actually financially viable. You'll also see in the report as well is that what we have done to contain any increase in fees and charges, what we have done is we've kind of backloaded, the proposition is to backload the investment strategy. So as we're moving forward over the last 5-6 years, then the contribution to reserves will need to increase. So what we've tried to do is actually keep the contribution to reserves in the first number of years as low as they possibly can in order to ensure that we're not increasing fees and charges significantly.
I understand exactly what you're saying, Craig. However, I am somewhat perturbed that we've not held consultations with the steamship company before this report was brought to Teddy.
Chairman, you're saying exactly why I was asking the question was because it was a very acrimonious argument.
I think there was an awful lot of acrimonious arguments last year, and we specifically requested that this was consulted with the steamship company before this was brought to Teddy, and it's not happened. And that I am disturbed about, certainly.
Why not?
And I think, looking around the room, I think the rest of this committee is disturbed about that as well.
Chairman, I couldn't agree more. I do know there has been communication, correspondence, whatever, between the senior manager and the chief executive of the committee, of the steamship group. But nonetheless, if a committee of this council requests that there should be consultation, then there should be consultation. It is that simple. Whether we think that it's well advised or not, that was a decision of this committee. So it is very disappointing if proper consultation has not been achieved, for whatever good reason might be put forward now.
I think it was Councillor O'Neill first.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of points. Firstly, yes, I also agree with Councillor Barclay's comments. In the main, although I do acknowledge and accept that this, as far as I'm concerned, this is the nuts and bolts and we can't ignore this. It's not, we shouldn't be one issue or the other, but we absolutely must be addressing the issues specifically referred to by Councillor Barclay, so I agree with that. I don't think it's appropriate, the comments from Councillor Coombs, to refer to the airport car park looking like a scrapyard. I think that's unfair, unkind. You're talking about people, and that, basically that's making a judgment about anybody that happens to park their private vehicle in a car park. I don't think that's appropriate for this committee. Going to Mr. Dryden's comments about the fact that we don't charge for parking, but that the paperwork says we do, and then it's up to us to decide whether or not we want to enforce that, seems bonkers to me. Is there anything else in this paperwork that's just made up that we don't enforce? I mean, is it all just nonsense? Because if there's lots of other things that we've got no intention of claiming that we're setting fees and charges for, then what's the point?
No, Chairman, it is actually only car parking that's actually, that is the anomaly actually in the fees and charges spreadsheet. That nothing else is. But that's something that we have been considering at the airport.
But it's an anomaly that you're aware of, that you've presented to us.
The issue has always been about enforcement, really, in terms
Yeah, I understand that,
absolutely.
but if you can't enforce it, then don't put it in the fees and charges, suggesting that we're going to make money out of it, because we're not.
No, and I agree with that point.
Councillor Guy?
Thank you, Chairman. It's just for the public record, really. I think it's worth pointing out that the 3% is 27 pence, the 5% is 44 pence, the 6% is at 52 pence, and the 10% is 87 pence. And I'd like to propose that we take the 10% increase.
I will second that.
I've got Councillor Martin on first.
Can we, again, I'm conscious of Councillor Barclay's point originally about tinkering around the edges and small beer that we're talking about, but nonetheless, if we are supposed to be raising money from whatever way possible, this business of the car park is absolute nonsense. I know of nowhere else in the world that I can just go and put my car there for months on end and not pay anything. I think there should be a daily charge. Even if we have to do it with an honesty box, we have to do something. I realise that there is a cost to infrastructure. I know that was one of the reasons that was advanced before, but I am firmly of the opinion that people in Scilly are generally honest and would put money in a box if necessary. It would also stop the leaving of cars there for weeks on end. We all know that that is a problem. We have all seen it. There should just be a drop-off area for those who choose not to park, and let's charge, and let's put this subject to bed.
Right, before we progress further on, and I hear what you've said, Councillor Guy, certainly. I'm just wondering aloud whether there is an opportunity to defer this decision because we've not had consultation. I am really not keen on deferring decisions like this, but because we've not held any consultation with the major supplier of transport into that airport, and as we did say last year that we were going to consult with them, is there any merit in and deferring this decision until we've had some sort of consultation with the steamship company? I'm asking the question. Councillor Montford.
If we were to take a vote on the 10% and actually that 10% went through, would it not have to go to full council on March the 7th?
Yeah, our recommendations have to anyway, because it's only a recommendation from this committee.
This committee has the power to set fees and charges.
It has to pass.
It does, all right.
Yeah.
However, I personally would like to avoid the debacle that we had last year, which did us no good and it did the steamship group no good whatsoever. I throw it out for your discussion on that, and that's my personal idea, and it's not come from any of the officers whatsoever. However, I would like this committee to discuss it. Councillor O'Neill first, I think.
Thank you. Just very quickly, Chairman, can I just, for clarification, did Chairman of the Council second Councillor Guy's proposal? Yeah. So
we have a proposal and a second.
Whilst I fully understand Councillor Guy's comments, and I don't necessarily disagree, I also agree with your comments to a certain extent, Chairman, and for that reason I will propose the recommendation before us of 6%.
I will second that, Chairman.
Rather than deferral. It's my personal choice. I will propose the recommendation.
I've got to take them in order.
Yeah, but whichever way it goes, I agree with Councillor Neil about not deferring.
Yeah.
Whatever sum is agreed.
It's all right. I threw it out, and it's this. from a point of view of this authority, we need to avoid the debacle of last year. That was the only reason I threw that idea out. If this committee doesn't want to defer, I'm quite happy with that as well.
It's the exact same reason, Chairman, that I'm trying to find a middle ground again this year.
With respect, Chairman, we need to set fees and charges now.
Fine.
A point of order, Chairman.
Yeah.
If we've taken this vote, can I still ask a question on this budget?
Yes.
I'll tell you why. It says generator shed £50,000. Now, the generator is there to obviously supply power if the general power fails. I can't understand why it's costing £50,000 for a generator shed when you can buy a generator for that amount. Where's the generator now?
Chairman, I mean, it does need a significant generator because you are talking about, a fairly large building with a lot of facilities, and so therefore, based on current prices, that has actually been priced. It's not just a, made-up figure. That is on the basis of the expectations of the airport at this moment in time. And I would say £50,000, and that's also for the upkeep of the building as well, so it's not just for the generator itself, and that's also for the kind of supply actually to the airport as well. I would say that is actually a fairly reasonable estimate of cost.
All right, Chairman.
Councillor Barclay.
Chairman, I would support your idea of deferral before consultation, but I mean, in order to get consultation with the steamship group, because we know from past experience that their prices reflect our price increases and more probably. So, but time is short, and I think that these papers have been available to them, and you may have had reaction prior. So I would support the 6% recommendation, but I'd like to see a bit of leeway so that consultation could take place nevertheless, and that fee is provisional up until the full council meeting.
All right. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just say, I fully accept the situation, the comments being made around the table around consultation. This committee did decide that there should be and would be consultation. The Chairman and Council is absolutely right. If there hasn't been, that's unacceptable. I think we need to bear in mind that even if there had been lengthy consultation, we still cannot realistically set fees and charges at less than a 6% increase. So respectfully, almost, and I'm trying to be very careful about how I word this, but almost regardless of what the outcome of that consultation would have been, we wouldn't be able to set it at less than a 6% increase, which is why, whilst I understand Councillor Guy's comments about the 10%, I have proposed the recommendation of a 6% increase.
Okay.
Yeah,
Councillor Martin.
I totally endorse the reasoning of Councillor O'Neill. And in any case, I don't know many turkeys that vote for Christmas.
Right. Is there any more discussion on that? Sorry, I didn't see your light, Councillor Daly.
On you go.
Your light's not working, Councillor McCarthy, I don't think.
The query, I was going to make another couple of points, not to do with this particular percentage increase, but other points in the report.
Is that relevant to the discussion that we've got on the table at the moment or not?
It's not relevant to the percentage increase, no.
Right. In that case, can I ask you to hang on to that until we've sorted this one out, Councillor Daly?
Yes. I think I agree that we should go for the 6%. Hopefully, it wouldn't come as a surprise to the steamship company. But I do think that directly after this meeting, they need to be told of what their decision is and why, and hopefully come to some sensible understanding of the situation, rather than they're just left to find out, and then it becomes a whole public acrimonious discussion.
Councillor Francis?
I was just going to say that I support Councillor O'Neill's proposal for the same reasons as we've always had in the discussion over these fees and charges. It's about stimulating growth as well as it is about making money for the airfield. I don't support the 10%, sadly, but there's no point in us having the same arguments we've had every year over this.
Okay.
We need to go through it.
Councillor Martin.
Yeah, and just to say, as Councillor Barclay said earlier, these papers have been in the public domain for quite a while. It's not a question of this coming as a bolt out of the blue. I know that the senior manager has had contact with the steamship company about this particular report, so just to reassure everybody that the figures are known.
Right. Councillor Hicks?
Yeah, I'd like to support the 6% pay rise, or the rise in fees, and but I think that consultation with the steamship company is imperative. We have to tell them what's going on. I know that there's been in the public domain, but they have to be told that this is what's happening, and we should have already told them that this is what we've proposed.
Right, are we all
yeah, but I am happy to support the 6%.
Right, are we all content that we've had sufficient discussion around those issues? Right, I've got to take them in order. The first proposition was from Councillor Guy to raise the charges by 10%. I'd just like to remind members, if that motion is carried, the other one is automatically lost. So all those in favour of raising by 10%? That is 3 in favour. All those against? That motion is lost. The second motion was by raising the fees and charges by 6%. All those in favour? All those against? Abstentions? That motion is carried. So the fees and charges are all raised by 6%. Right, I know Councillor McCarthy had something to say.
Before you carry on, Chairman,
Sorry.
Can we have a reassurance that there will be immediate contact made with the steamship group to understand their feelings about this?
Yeah, I will have it minuted and request in open forum that Craig, you write to the steamship company immediately informing them of the decision.
I'm due to meet the chief executive either tomorrow or Thursday morning, so we've already had some dialogue.
Yeah, I think, respectfully, Chairman, but if you have made a specific request to the senior manager will follow that request, not defer it for a day or two.
Oh, Chairman, I wasn't alluding to the fact I wouldn't follow that up. I'm just saying that for members' information, I have already arranged to actually meet in person with the chief exec.
Can we make sure that the steamship group is informed immediately after this meeting, please? Yeah. Thank you. Right. Councillor McCarthy. I've got that one, don't worry. Councillor McCarthy, please.
You refer to EGNOS in the report, and you've mentioned it in passing today. Is there a date that the Civil Aviation Authority has given us yet?
Chairman, all of the safety cases and all of our reports were given back to the Civil Aviation Authority in the summer of last year. I think it was July, and we're still actually waiting for validation from the Civil Aviation Authority.
Can't we prompt them? I mean,
we have had dialogue, and I'm still hoping that EGNOS can be implemented at the start of the new visitor season. But I'll go back to the airport manager to make sure that we do actually follow up again with the CAA to make sure that obviously it's fast-tracked as quickly as possible.
Yes. And my second question was to do with the lease. Are we making progress with the Duchy about obtaining a new lease if we can't get anyone to take over the airport, or where are we on that?
Chairman, all I can say is that we're still in negotiations with the Duchy.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Billsborough.
Yes, Chairman, I don't think we have voted on recommendation 1.
That's what I was just about to say.
If we have not, I propose to accept recommendation 1.
Right. Recommendation 1, members, is that members approve the revised investment and replacement plan for the airport set out in Appendix 1 of the report. Okay. I'll come back to that. We have a proposal. Have we got a second, though? We've got a second. Councillor O'Neill, is there any discussion on that item? No?
Only that I apologise. I meant to do it in the original recommendation.
That's not a problem. Right, it's not a problem. Right.
I guess,
we have
sorry. Just one question. Sort of car parking. Have we?
I'm going to come back to that.
Right. Okay.
I'm going to come back to that.
Can I just ask if we've got this investment plan that's quite, detailed going on a long time into the future. Is there any provision, if we are going to forever or increase our charges and hopefully start making a reserve, is there any provision if you actually don't need to use all of that reserve? And indeed, we find that some of these costs are exaggerated and we don't need to spend so much later on down the line, and we may be accumulating significant sums of money. Is there any provision to actually be able to release that to other parts of the community to help us with our other funding?
I think that's an ongoing thing of any investment plan that can be altered as and when we see fit in the future.
I think the taxpayer would be very happy if we could do that kind of thing later on.
I generally don't see this as a massive problem on the grounds I don't think it's going to generate millions of pounds and get the council out of its current financial situation.
Chairman, it's a trading account.
I think Councillor Martin was first.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I agree with you that it's the picture isn't that rosy, but nonetheless, earmarked reserves are under review, and we are trying to address that issue across the board. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, Councillor Barclay.
And I was just going to point out that as a trading account and non-reliant on council tax, then the investment of it should surely be put towards its original purpose.
That's what it is, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it can't be reinvested elsewhere.
That's why I understand it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Are you wishing to say anything, or have you just forgotten to put your
Sorry,
Right, we have a proposal, and it's been seconded that members approve the revised investment and replacement plan for the airport as set out in Appendix 1 of the report. All those in favour? Oh, sorry, did you want to say something?
I apologise, I had to make a phone call, but has the matter of the car park been included?
No, I'm going to come back to that.
All right, because I don't want us to agree to this and find we've boxed ourselves out of being able to do that, as long as I'm reassured that that's not the case.
We can alter that if necessary.
All right,
thereafter.
okay, brilliant. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, I said while you were outside, though, I was going to come back to that anyway. So the proposal is, all those in favour? Against? Abstentions? Okay, the motion carried. Now, I would like to come back to the issue of the car park and open that up for discussion, please, to start with. Councillor Martin.
Yeah, I would like to propose that there is a daily charge with an honesty box system and see, subject to review, to see if that will work. We need to sort out the matter of raising money is one aspect of this, but the other aspect of this is discouraging people from leaving vehicles there for long periods of time. And therefore, because what I have noticed in my infrequent visits to the airport is that it then becomes difficult for other people to access parking because there are long stay cars there. So for both reasons, I would propose that we work out a suitable daily charge. As I say, with an honesty box.
Are you going to quantify that charge or not in your proposal?
I think that should
it's very difficult to pass a proposal that's open-ended, that's all.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I don't honestly know. I think... What?
Sorry, Chairman, if you don't mind, might I suggest that we just hand that over to the senior management and the chairman of this committee?
Okay, can you put that into your proposal then?
Yeah, but that's what I wanted to say is I don't think I can find a figure. I think it has to be done in consultation between yourself and the senior officer. So that's my view.
Okay, it was Councillor Mumford, and I'll come back to you in a minute.
Yes, I would be in agreement of charging for cars up there. Is there any way that we have any staff up there that could enforce some sort of payment somehow?
Chairman, just really briefly, I was going to come back in terms of the honesty box situation, because what we could actually look at is to see actually what systems, what kit and equipment we'd need to make it actually relatively easy to enforce. Yeah. And I think that's something that I could, but if members are happy to actually defer that decision to the chair and vice chair in consultation with myself and the airport manager, I think that would be a sensible solution, including setting a daily charge.
Yeah, I would happily second that as a proposal, and also it seems to me we need to be obviously mindful that we don't end up with simplicity is the key here, isn't it? Because we don't want to end up with a system that ends up costing more to enforce than it generates.
Yeah.
You're happy with the deferral into to the responsible to
yeah, no,
the chair and the vice chair?
It's what I was going to
consultation with
suggest
the
anyway.
officers?
But so,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're happy
absolutely.
with that to be
Absolutely.
agreed? Okay. Councillor Coombs?
I just would point out that there is a car parking fee set out within the spreadsheet at the moment, but I'd hopefully we'd come up with something a bit more simple.
Yeah, but that's the one that says that the first 5 days
It's
is
free and £8.11.
But also something like £9.73, Chairman, is an absolutely crazy,
It's a wonderful
crazy sum.
figure.
And Chairman, we will come up with a sensible rounded number.
Notwithstanding £9.73, Councillor Billsborough.
I'm dead against all this, Chairman. There isn't a car park up there. There's a mass of soggy ground when it rains. There's no marked out spaces.
There is on one side of the road.
On one side, but there's not many. If you're going to go in for this car park and that, it's always a popular thing. We'll sting the motorists, we'll make people use their legs, and this is another opportunity to do it. You'll have to put in a lot more logistical effort into making a proper car park there. You'll have to find somebody who can prowl round and enforce it. It is not a simple thing, but it's the people who advocate use your legs brigade who are against cars. I'm not against this proposition.
I think Councillor Martin summed it up by saying that this operation cannot cost us more than it generates. I think that was your words, was it? Sorry, Councillor O'Neill's. Yeah. So no, I think that. I take your suggestions on board, Councillor Billsborough, but it's not going to cost us more than it generates. Is there any more discussion on the car parking at the airport? If not, I'll take that to the vote. The summary of the proposition is that the decision is deferred to the chairman of TEDI and the vice chair and the officers to come up with an equitable solution that doesn't cost us any more than it raises.
Sorry, Chairman, can I suggest the word delegation?
Yeah,
Delegated.
I was going to say, can you say delegated?
Delegated.
Okay, yeah, I'm quite happy to put that in.
Delegation to whom, Chairman? Aren't we going to have a say?
Weren't you listening? Sorry.
No, seriously.
It was to the chairman of TEDI.
Yes.
The vice chairman of TEDI and the officer.
Yes. And they will decide.
And bring a sensible
All right,
solution.
Chairman, I'm really sorry. I hate myself for doing this, but I can't help it now. It can't say just that it doesn't cost more than it generates alone, because that could be zero.
In that case, generates a profit.
Yes.
Amended with generates a profit. Okay? Are you happy with that now? Right. All those in favour? Against?
Can you record my vote against it, Chairman?
Yes. Councillor Billsborough's vote is recorded.
Against.
Any abstentions? Right, that's motion carried. Thank you. Right, I've lost it. Where are we now? Right. The next item on the agenda, ladies and gents, is the local flood risk management strategy.
Yes, Chairman. You'll see from the Flood and Water Management Act 2010 that as a lead local flood authority, we do have responsibility to produce a flood risk management strategy. Now, you'll see from the report that generally flood risk management strategies should cover risks from what the Environment Agency would term ordinary watercourses, groundwater and surface water flooding. Now, in our case, these aren't necessarily applicable to the Isles of Scilly because we don't have any major watercourses, inland watercourses actually on the islands. So what we've actually done is prepared a strategy which is actually appropriate to the context of the islands, and in particular does actually focus on the risks of coastal flooding. You'll see from the report that there is a time constraint on this particular strategy, so it needs to be with the ministers by the end of the financial year. We're currently in consultation with the Environment Agency, so you'll see that there are two recommendations. One is that members approve the draft as written, but with the caveat that there may be some revisions on the basis of some of the advice that we get back from the Environment Agency. And that decision is delegated to the chair and vice chair of this committee in consultation, supported by myself as the senior manager. We're not expecting significant revisions because, as you'll see also from the report, that we've had significant dialogue with the Environment Agency over a number of years now in terms of this whole issue.
I just, from the chair, would just like to add a couple of comments to that, is that I have worked with Julian Pearce to a degree on this report. He's put an enormous amount of work into this, and I would like to put my appreciation on record for that. We have had conference calls with the Environment Agency, and their initial reaction from what I have gleaned from those calls is that they are reasonably happy with this. I suspect there may be some minor revisions, as Craig said, but I don't see them as being major. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I completely agree. That's exactly what I was going to say. I'd like to just thank the senior officer for all his work. It's an extremely thorough report. And on that basis, I'd like to propose recommendation 1 and 2.
Councillor Martin.
I'd like to second that for the same reasons. Thank you.
Right. Is there any discussion on the... Yes. Sorry, I couldn't see your lights. Yeah.
Haven't seen the light, Chairman.
I haven't seen the light yet, Councillor Daly, no.
It's just a small point, but page 34 or page 13, according to some numberings, it's talking about past flood events, and it gives a list of, section 4, gives a list of the things like climate change, rising sea level, inundation, etc. It doesn't mention the fact that the Isles of Scilly are sinking approximately 1 millimetre a year anyway.
Don't think there's an awful lot we can do about that.
No, but we do. Chairman, very, very droll.
Yeah.
But we do need to take some cognizance of, in say, in planning or in whatever other things we're going to do, that you know, those things, that is taken into account.
From casting frivolity aside, I know the Environment Agency are aware of that because I've been involved in bits and pieces of conference calls, but their reaction was almost the same as what I did, is that we can mitigate what happens with our actions on a flood plan as opposed to do anything about it, so that any mitigation then comes as potential flood defences within the future, and that is actually taken care of within this document. It may not be actually mentioned as such, but that has certainly been taken on board.
Chairman, you put a list of possibilities of that that we might be flooded, but this is a absolutely cast iron risk that we're going to be flooded, particularly Hewtown, and it really ought to be mentioned as one of the causes. And
I will pass on that comment certainly to Julian Pearce, but I know that he is actually aware of that, and it has been mentioned in discussion, certainly.
And in fact, Chairman, I would actually add to that, because you know that's a golden thread that actually runs throughout this report, because it is all about understanding the flood risk to the Isles of Scilly. It's about how we manage going forward the flood risks. Now, some things are inevitable, and what we can't do, unfortunately, is turn back some of those issues around climate change. No, what we can do moving forward is making sure that some of our strategies, such as the local plan, take on board what might happen in 20, 30 years' time by actually making sure that we are planning against and mitigating as much as we can against the consequences of climate change and coastal flooding.
Chairman, you know, it may be thought that I'm old and stupid, but I'm not. The Isles of Scilly are sinking, and that's one of the causes of flood, and what we should be taking into account is not stopping it, which is absolutely ludicrous.
That's why I use the word mitigation.
But we do need to take into account in this plan that the Isles are sinking, and there needs to be something done in mitigation.
Just for reassurance, Councillor Daly, that has been mentioned. Your specific point has been mentioned in discussions with the Environment Agency and with Julian Pearce, so he is aware. He may well not have written it in the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it? Right. Yeah. In that case, it is there. That I must have missed that. Okay. Sorry, who was next? I think Councillor Billsborough was next.
Yes, Chairman, there is a point we ought to bear in mind, and I'm not scaremongering. In 2004, I wrote to the council, and I wrote elsewhere, in La Palma, there's a volcano which, if there was an earthquake shock, it could cause a volume of land the size of the Isle of Man to slide into the sea. I have actually walked around that earthquake fault myself. The result would be, we'd have 6 hours' notice of a tsunami wave of being between 30 and 40 feet, reaching these islands on the west coast of England. Now, I wrote to William Thomas at the time, who was the environmental officer, which to the council, and I had remarks from people, oh, that's Gordon again. 4 months later, there was the East Indian Ocean tsunami, which killed several 100,000 people. Now, all I'm saying is that we ought